Welcome back to So You Really Want to Learn Latin, and today we're going to look at how nouns work when used with verbs. We've learnt a lot about verbs, so we learnt that a verb has three persons in the singular, the first person, second person and third person, and three persons in the plural, the first person, second person and third person. And we learnt that those persons were used for the pronouns I, first person, you, second person, and he or she or it, third person, those in the singular, and in the plural, we, that's the first person, you, the second person, and they, the third person. So we were able to come up with little phrases such as I was singing, or she was fighting, or it was singing. In all of those examples, the subject of the verb, in other words, the person or the thing doing the verb, was always a pronoun. I, or you, or he, or she, or we, or you, or they. Okay, well now we want to see what happens when a noun is the subject of a sentence. So, what we learnt last time is that the noun mensa, which is a first declension noun, has a nominative case that ends in the letter A, mensa, when it's singular, and mensae when it's plural. Okay? And we learnt that the nominative case was used for the subject. Now we didn't say very much more about it, we just said that that was the case. The nominative case was used for the subject. Right, so let's see what actually happens when we put the noun with a verb. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run down the verb amor, might as well, it's the verb we play around with. And I'm going to do it in its first person and its second person and its third person singular. But just watch what happens when a noun gets involved. Okay, so if I say I love, that would be amor. If I say you love, that would be amas. If I say he loves, that would be amat. If I say she loves, that would also be amat. If I say it loves, that would be amat. If I say the farmer loves, now the verb is still going to be amat because the farmer is a he loves. Agricola, there's our farmer, amat. Okay, so amat is he loves, agricola amat is the farmer loves. Puella amat means the girl loves. She loves. Puella, the girl, in the nominative case, amat, loves. Okay, and if we go into the plural, we can say amamus, which means we love, or amatis, which means you love, or amant, which means they love. But we could add a noun to that and say nautai amant, which would be the sailors love. Now, what you notice is that, as I said last lesson, when a noun is the subject of a verb, it must go in the nominative case. Okay, fair enough. But also notice how the verb must agree with that noun. And what I mean by that is if the noun is singular and is the subject, then the verb must also be singular, but it will be third person singular. Because if there is a singular subject of a verb, we would, if we wanted to use a pronoun, instead of that noun, we would use the third person pronoun, he or she or it, depending on who or what the noun was. If it were plural, so if our subject was the girls, and they were plural, the girls, the pronoun we would use would be they, so the verb will be third person plural for they. So, as we come down our list, amamus, we love, amatis, you love, amant, they love, puellai, amant, the girls love, nautai, amant, the sailors love, incolai, amant, the inhabitants love. So do you see what's happening? The noun is always in the nominative case, either singular if it's singular, or plural if it's plural. And the verb, where a noun is the subject of the sentence, the verb goes into the third person. Third person singular if the subject is singular, third person plural if the subject is plural. And just one thing to notice about that, the subject of the sentence could be plural, but be made up of two or more singular nouns. So for example, if we were to say the farmer and the sailor were singing, we would have agricola et nauta cantabant. Cantabant on its own would mean they were singing, and that's because the subject of that verb was the farmer and the sailor. And when you refer to the farmer and the sailor together, you call them they. They were singing. Okay? So, gradually this language is becoming just a little bit more complex. Your verbs, you've done a lot of work on verbs, making sure that you know the ending, to know if it's I or you or he or we or you or they, and to know which tense is being used. Is it a present tense or a future tense or an imperfect tense or a perfect tense? So you're looking very carefully at the ending of the verb to see which tense it is and which person. But now we're adding some complexity by saying that if we don't want just a boring old pronoun to be the subject of our sentence, instead we want a noun, then the noun must be in the nominative case, either singular or plural, depending on whether the noun is singular or plural. And the verb must very carefully go with that noun. So if the subject of the verb is singular, then the verb will be third person singular. And if the subject is plural, the verb will be third person plural. Okay? Now, we're going to need to do quite a lot of practice at this, because I could be giving you any of the verbs we've learnt. I might be doing it in any of the tenses. And now I'm going to start throwing nouns at you. So it won't always just be a simple we were singing or they were shouting. It might be the sailors were singing, or the farmer was shouting, or the girls will sing, or the inhabitants have sung. Okay, so quite a lot going on. I do just a couple more now with you, and then I'm going to leave you to it. I'll give you some practice exercises in the description box below. But just have a go at these. Let's have, for example, the inhabitants have sailed. Okay, so the inhabitants are plural. Incolai, nominative plural, because they are the subject, have sailed, na wiga weren't. And notice that is the third person plural because the subject is they. The inhabitants, if you were to use a pronoun for them, it would be they. Okay, one more. The Latin for a woman is femina, and let's say this woman will be working. Femina laborabit, the woman will work. Notice femina has got a nominative singular ending, and laborabit is third person singular because it refers to she. The woman will work. And if the woman and the girl were singing, we would have femina et puella. Okay, now both of those nouns have nominative singular endings because they're going to be the subject. So femina et puella cantabant. The woman and the girl were singing. They were singing. Cantabant. Okay? So whenever you're looking at that verb, just ask yourself, what would the pronoun have been if I wasn't using a noun? So the girl and the woman would be they. Okay? Right, that's enough for now. We are moving into chapter 2 of So You Really Want to Learn Latin. It's going to get quite fun next time when we add some more complexity and start using more cases. Next time we're going to be looking, as I think I promised earlier, at the difference between the subject of the sentence and the object. But for now, lots to get practice on. Do subscribe to this channel if you like these lessons, and we will see you next time.